Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Thursday night Top 5 Baits Live. How you doing? We're going to talk about Lake Fork bass fishing. Man, what a tremendous week of weather we've had for fishing. Or not. You can't draw it up a whole lot worse than this as far as fishing conditions go. We've had extreme winds, zero sunlight, fastly falling water temps, a lot of rain just to make it that much more uncomfortable. Uh, in the fall, you can have some absolutely amazing days, big numbers of fish ready to feed, actively feeding. But golly, man, when you get conditions like this, it's about as tough as it can get. Now, that being said, we're going to get some sunshine tomorrow. And on Saturday, the highs are supposed to get up around 69. Should have some sunshine on the water then as well on Saturday. So it's not all doom and gloom for the weekend. But I can tell you, Monday through Thursday has been about as bad of fishing conditions as a man can ever hope for. I haven't talked to hardly anybody. I haven't hardly fished this week, to be honest with you. I had customers reschedule. I mean, nobody wants to pay a bunch of money to go out there in 50-degree rain and wind and struggle to catch them at that. I mean, it's it's not something people really want to get out and do. It's a tough deal. It's been a tough week for us weather-wise. That is part of the fall. Good news is we're going to turn around and get some stable weather next week, so it should be good. That water cooling off a little bit more is not a bad deal. It's not going to put them out of the fall bite or anything like that. I think next week will be, I think maybe starting this weekend we might see a little bit of it, and then next week and going into next weekend we should have really good stable conditions, and the bite should really get pretty good. So, that being said, we're going to deal with, if you're fishing tomorrow, you're going to deal with still pretty tough bite, I would imagine. If you're fishing Saturday, it's probably not going to be the easiest bite. Should start to get better by Sunday. So we're going to have to change our tactics. We're not going to be able to just go out there and throw a swim bait, a swim jig, and top waters and, go have fun like that. We're not going to be able to do that. We're going to have to kind of change a little bit of how we go about doing things. If you watch Facebook's Tuesdays, the live we do on Facebook on Tuesdays, and you saw this bait then, but this is definitely bait that I'm going to be leaning on. Now that the water is down in the 60s, it is down in the 60s, and it should stay there. And especially on tougher post-frontal conditions, I'm really going to lean on a finesse jig. This is a 1/4 ounce, 6 cents ball head finesse jig. It's got a really big heavy hook. It's got a really stout weed guard paired with a little trimmed down stroker crawl is what that is right there. By the way, new billy bag coming from 6 cents. I finally updated. It's long overdue. I took forever to ever update the billy bag again. We got a new one coming soon, so y'all stay tuned for that. But the finesse jig is going to be my #1 pick. If I know where some fish have been, unfortunately for me, I fish enough, I kind of know where these fish have been feeding on some fall feeding areas. I'm going to get in those areas and fish the first drop-offs or drains or just cover off the bank. Not necessarily, don't want to be necessarily up on the bank, but I'm going to fish this finesse jig really slow in those areas that I know is holding fish right now. Hey, another bait that we can use to slow down right now in the shallow water areas that have been holding fish is going to be a wacky worm. Wacky worm is about as good of a finesse bait up shallow as you can find. Watermelon candy is the color I've been using the most lately. That's probably my #1 go-to color for weightless plastics around here. It's probably watermelon candy, but watermelon anything can work. I mean, I ain't telling you that a June bug or a black and blue wouldn't work. It can all those colors can be kind of a day-to-day situation. Most important is one, you got to pick one that you're confident in that you know they will bite. Watermelon candy is a good one for me. Now, what happens if we don't know where the fish are? Like you guys going out this weekend, hey, I got you covered. So we're going to have to search. We're going to have to search and get some reaction bites, but we're going to have to do it with fish that are really cold. They're getting colder fast, and they're going to be not really wanting to be aggressive and feed. So how are we going to get those fish to bite? Well, those tight wiggling baits are going to be your best bet for that. So the first one I'm going to pick up is going to be the lipless crankbait. This is the Quake 70 from 6 Cents Fishing. I'm still throwing shad patterns right now. I don't think it's a bad idea to throw the red lipless crankbaits. It's about the time of year we start throwing the red crankbaits, about right now. So don't be scared to throw a crawfish deal if that's your deal and you're not getting bit on a shad pattern. But I do tend to still lean on the shad patterns more this time of year than the crawfish baits. This is going to be a great bait to cover a ton of water and get some lethargic fish to react for you. Another one's going to be the little small square bill. This is the Crush 50X square bill. Now, if you'll notice, this color right here is kind of a golden chrome color. Hey, when I start getting sunshine, especially in the fall when they're feeding on shad, and I get sunshine, I really like chrome colored square bills. Pro tip of the day. Another bait that we could include in that as well would be a jerkbait. Now, a jerkbait, you can't cover water nearly as efficiently as you can with a square bill or a lipless crankbait. But a jerkbait's another good bait that you could throw under the conditions we're facing this week. Hey, another one, if you're fishing around a lot of grass, it's going to be a chatterbait. The vibration of that chatterbait in the grass, when it's cold, they won't bite nothing else. Something about that chatterbait will still get them to bite. I would still, again, shad patterns, as you can see, are still predominant for me this time of year. Movement 80X, there's a question about a Movement 80X. Movement 80X absolutely can be something that can get you bit in these post-frontal lethargic conditions. The way it deflects off cover does cause fish to bite in cold water. I catch them in the coldest time of the year on the Movement 80X every year. So I'm going a little bit more small. I'm trying to really, this is my version of kind of finesse fishing. It's a finesse version of power fishing with that square bill and that lipless bait. They have really tight wiggles. Hey, another bait again that could be a good one to try is the flat 75X, that flat-sided square bill. If you're fishing water and you need to get a little bit deeper than that square bill will get, try that flat 75. It's really good, really tight wiggle again. What are your thoughts about using a flutter spoon? Are you finding any fish out on those long tapering points? Yeah, absolutely. There are a few starting to show up out there. There have been. I think there's going to be a lot more show up with this cold front. I think we need to give it a few days, though, and let those fish kind of settle in and really gather up after this sudden change in water temperatures. I think by the time next week rolls around, the flutter spoon and the Alabama rig and all that fall offshore bite will really be in full swing. What about a flashy swimmer? I'm not going to really probably throw a swim bait near as much right now in these conditions that we face this week. Not saying you couldn't get bit on one by the time Saturday afternoon or Sunday rolls around with those warmer temps that are coming. And some sunshine, a couple days of sunshine. Yeah, that might make them start chasing down that swim bait. That's not really a reaction bait per se. That's a bait they follow, pursue, look at a long time, and then eat it, typically. So that's not really, I'm going for baits that they'll react to that have subtle little vibrations and subtle stops and changes when it deflects off wood, when it deflects off grass with the lipless and the chatterbait. Those are the kind of baits that I'm looking for to get reaction bites on moving baits. Everybody wants me to give predictions on the Bassmaster tournament that's coming up on Lake Fork. I think it's November 5th, 6th, and 7th or something like that. It's like next weekend, right? I think that's when it is. But everybody's wanting me to give predictions on that. Guys, I've never seen pros fish in the fall. I don't know. Right now, and the forecast could change. Right now the weather looks like they're going to have a good tournament. Looks like they're going to catch them better than they've been catching them on Chickamauga and Santee Cooper and all that. That being said, these guys don't know how to fish these lakes in the fall. It's obvious. I don't know how much that's factoring into these tournament weights being lower in the fall. These guys have never traveled and fished these lakes in the fall before. I have no idea how good or bad they're going to do. It is really up in the air. None of us have ever seen this type of event this late in the year on these lakes. Spinnerbait with a trailer or no? I don't throw trailers on my spinnerbait. I throw trailer hooks, but I don't throw trailers on my spinnerbaits. I just roll with the skirt. What rod do you like for the lipless baits? I like something between like 7.3 and 7.5 medium heavy. That Divine Series 7.5 medium heavies, a little bit more torque than I want on a lipless bait, but I can make it work if I need to. Really like a 7.4 medium heavy, 7.3 medium heavy is about the right rod to me for lipless baits. How is Old Lake Welsh doing now that we have had some cooler weather? I haven't had a chance to get on it since we've had cooler weather. Speaking of, on the Fish Life app, for you guys that are subscribed to the Fish Life app, hey, normally we update everything by the 1st. Well, the 1st is falling on Sunday. I'm going to give it a few extra days because I want to get behind this cold front, let things settle in before I update the packages. Now, some of them are getting done this week from our other contributors. But Lake Fork, the power plants, look at the stuff around here, I'm going to wait until next week to update them, because I feel like if I update it right now, that might be totally different than what you guys are facing next week as far as the bites and the areas and all that stuff. So I want to make sure, as always, number one priority for us is to give you all the best information that exists. So I'm going to let this cold front kind of get past us, let it settle in for a few days. Then I'm going to hit all these lakes up and fish as many of them as I can and get you guys updates by the end of next week. So hope y'all can understand that. It's really just me wanting to make sure that I'm giving you the best accurate information once these fish have moved around from this cold front and settled back in. Best breakfast tacos on Fork. Oak Ridge has the best breakfast on Lake Fork, Oak Ridge Marina, in my opinion. They make pretty good breakfast tacos at the Minnow Bucket though too. For just tacos, like they're ready to go, you can buy them and go. Probably the Minnow Bucket. Oak Ridge is more of a sit down and eat breakfast place. What do you think about all the zeros we're seeing in the opens? I can tell you about all the zeros that we're seeing in the opens. Again, these guys have never fished these lakes in the fall. Fall does present challenges. When you get it, like, if those guys, if the Elite Series was fishing on Lake Fork Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they would have sucked. And a lot of those guys would have zeroed on Lake Fork. It would have happened. If you get on the right side of the frontal system, which I think the Elite Series might be hitting it on a good little stable, not necessarily warming trend, but a stable trend before it cools off again. If another cold front does blow in here before that tournament's over, those guys will probably catch them pretty good. That is fall fishing. You can have some of the best days of the year under the right situation. You can also have some of the worst days of the year if you fish like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That is just the way fall goes. You are very, very dependent on the weather. Which guide lanes do you use on your map for Lake Fork? The ones in here. I don't have a guide lanes chip. I've been running that lake. You know, one of the best things that happened to me was I moved here in 2009. In 2011, the lake got to an all-time low, and I really got to learn a lot about navigating the lake. And I was somehow I was smart enough to take the time to really take advantage of that opportunity and learn my way in and out of most of these creeks. So I run my own trails. I don't have a guide lanes chip. Stephen Father's chip is supposed to be really, really good. It has more stuff than the older Lance Vick chips do on it. I think Lance Vick updated his, though, and his new ones are better too. I don't think you can go wrong with either one. I really don't. Did all the rain push the lake up a lot, or not much change in depth? Well, I don't know. I don't know. It didn't change a whole lot. I mean, we didn't just get torrential downpours. It's not full by any means. I don't know the exact number. I haven't looked it up, but I know it's still low. As far as color, the color is, you know, yes, some areas did get dirtier, but it's already starting to clear back up again. And it's not just dirty all over the lake. It did change some, but it's not a huge, drastic difference. Tom Lowe says he loved the video from Athens Fishery. It was very informative. Yeah, it seems like a lot of you guys really enjoyed that video we shot down there at the fishery. We have another one with the Share Lunker program. Kyle Brooks, one of the guys that runs the Share Lunker program. We got a video coming on that and the details on that and how that program is working to grow more giant teenage class bass around Texas waters. So that video should be coming out this weekend. Be sure you guys take a look at that one as well. It should have a lot of great information about what Texas Parks and Wildlife is doing to help grow bigger bass in the state, and what they have done for a lot of years now, really. What's the best burger place by Lake Fork? You know, they both have pretty good burgers. The two main restaurants that I eat at the most are Tiffany's at Lake Fork Marina and Oak Ridge Marina. And they're both really good as far as burgers go. At Oak Ridge, I like it because you can do the build your own burger and you can throw like a fried egg on that burger. And I'm going to tell you what, if you ain't eat a burger with a fried egg on it, son, you're missing out. Like, that's the way to do it. That's the deal. Now, don't plan on having a lot of energy when you're done eating that big old burger. But yes. I have not had the burger place on Tawakoni. Sure haven't. It's probably hard for you because you're a guide, but it would be really cool if you start hitting up more lakes and did videos of you breaking them down and fishing them. Yeah, so I do fish a lot of other lakes for video content. For that, I mean, to try and keep it, more interesting. What I probably don't do a good enough job at is going to lakes that I don't know. I got so many lakes around here that I enjoy fishing that I tend to go back to the ones I don't know, and then I don't do a very good job of verbalizing what I'm thinking when I get to that lake as far as breaking down a lake that I haven't really been on. I should probably work on being better about communicating with you guys in the videos on what I'm thinking as I'm going throughout the day. I try to do that some. I'm just not the best at it. I'm not the best YouTube host, or I'd have a much bigger YouTube channel, obviously. I'm more of just a fishing guy that's going to tell you the truth about how I catch them when I do catch them. I'm going to show you the baits I'm using. All that stuff, you guys are going to get to kind of watch me and observe what you can from what I'm doing, but I'm not the best host. Phoenix or Bass Cat? Phoenix for me. Phoenix, of course. I recommend Skeeter over all of them, but yeah, if I had to choose Phoenix or Bass Cat, I'd choose a Phoenix. Any word on Monticello? No word on Monticello. Nothing. I have not heard anything. I haven't asked anybody about it in a while, but I haven't heard anything. How's the kids' soccer going? Well, you guys are asking some non-fishing questions. I love it. The kids' soccer is going. It's going. It's we're young. We'll just say that we're young. They're doing good. They're playing hard. They're playing hard. Has Lake Cooper come back any? Not that I haven't been on it, and not that I've heard of it all. Hypothetically speaking, if you could get a wild card exemption to fish Fork in early November against the elites, where would your main areas be, and what would be your go-to baits? Well, I would. It's all available on the Fish Life app. I'll actually be doing updates this next week, and if you subscribe to the Lake Fork Premium package of the Fish Life app, you will literally see my 20 best places and the baits I want to use on what type of areas they are and all that information. So if you want to know that much detailed information and exactly where I'll be fishing and all that, subscribe to the Fish Life app, Lake Fork Premium package. Rhodes and Maxfield versus Lawson and who? Okay, so my old tournament partner, Timmy Rhodes, and John Maxfield, who I fished with last week or week before in a video, they're buddies. They want to fish against me and somebody else, and I got to pick my partner. I don't know. I'd have to see who I could get to show up. I mean, I don't know. I just have to see who was available, I guess. I'm a little disappointed that my old tournament partner is going to fish against me in a team challenge. Like, that in and of itself is very disappointing. Just saying. Is Louisville Lake on that app? It absolutely is. Lake Louisville is on the Fish Life app. It's actually a combo package of Louisville and Grapevine. We have spots on both on the Louisville Grapevine Premium package. And the Fish Life, the life is spelled with a Y, L-Y-F-E. When is Whiskey Myers coming to Neon Moon? Probably never. Probably never. Whiskey Myers plays big venues. Not sure how you feel about it, but watching Milliken call out Guggen copying 6 Cents was pretty good. Listen, I've got a relationship with the Guggen squad that I've always had. Those guys have been good to me in the past. They've done some really nice things for me and my family, and I've helped them where I could, with the fishing stuff. But I was in a very tough spot when that video came out because I've got friends on both sides. Obviously, I have a very good relationship with 6 Cents Fishing. I have a good relationship with Bill Milliken. So I was kind of caught in the middle of that deal. That's a tough situation for me. Am I still using the ridge worms at all? Not as much. I've kind of switched over, so my shallow, I was using ridge worms, ribbon tail type worms, and I was using the ridge worm for that. coming out of September going into October. Now I've kind of transitioned. I don't really throw those anymore. I go back to throwing smaller finesse shaky head worms on shaky heads and this finesse jig right here. These are more of my dragon baits that I'm going to be using now. My weighted dragon baits now will be a shaky head with a 6.5, 7-inch finesse worm. The divine shaky head worm is the one I'm using, and then that finesse jig. Can I get a shout out? Of course you can. Aaron Candigan. Hope I said that right. Shout out. Can I have a shout out too? Kyle's Hooked Fishing. Of course you can. Everybody gets shout out. Shaky head's been the juice lately. Yeah. Once the water starts getting down out of the 70s, man, those finesse worms and those finesse jigs, especially those straight tail worms, man, they become a really, really good deal. T-Lo says he's missing fantasy football. I miss fantasy football too, but I ain't supporting them bunch of goober heads. Says she do think we can see this fish to start moving to shallow. I'm assuming you're asking me if the fish are starting to move to shallow water. The fish have been moved to shallow water at this point. They are in the backs, and at this point, they're probably going to stay back there for a little while longer. But we get another front or two, and some of them will start backing back out. You'll always have some residential fish shallow in this area, though. There'll always be some shallow. What advice can you give a new YouTuber from Ozark Lakes? Create. Or don't even create, just document. Don't even worry about creating, just document, man. Do what you do, what you love to do. Make the content that you want to make. You don't know who's going to relate or not relate to it. But I can promise you the content you make will be much better if you make the content you want to make. I have never been the one that has chased the clicks. I have never been the one that has went out to make a living via YouTube. I made content that I was passionate about creating the way that I would want to watch content, and I saw how it worked. And no, I'm not a big YouTuber by any means, but what it has done is allow me to promote and grow a business that allows me to literally live my dream. It's been really, really good for me. My life has worked out really well using it that way. So I think everybody's going to be better off when they're making content if they're making content that they're passionate about. So that would be my number one advice is, A, outwork everybody, make a lot of content, make a ton of content, way more than you think you should, on every platform, not just YouTube. Make it across all platforms and make content that you love making. What are my favorite colors in the 6-inch jerkbait? Oh, God, I'm terrible at color names. I'm so bad at color names. Shag greens, I think, is one. It's got a green back and like just a pearl, faded pearl side and a little bit of orange hue on the belly. Really like shad greens in darker conditions. Gold reactor is one of my favorites. Ditchweed, that red one is very unique. I like that one. And then on the translucent ones, I like Pro Blue Shad. And there's another translucent one. I think it's called Violet Panda. But it's got like a purple back, kind of a translucent side, and a little bit of chartreuse on the belly. Those are my two translucent ones. So Violet Panda, Pro Blue Shad for the translucents, Gold Reactor, and Shad Greens for solid colors. And then just an off-the-wall crazy one that gets absolutely bit is Ditchweed. It's like red and yellow. Come up to McGee Creek. Like to see a lake I know. I need to get up there and do some Oklahoma fishing. Haven't fished Fork. If planning a first trip, would you suggest waiting this spring? For a first timer to Lake Fork, if you want to know that you're going to come down here and have the best chance of having a good, successful trip and catching a good number of fish, May is your month. May is the best month where you can fish kind of any way that you're comfortable fishing relatively to Lake Fork in all depths and all that stuff, and catch a good number of fish doing a little bit of all of it. So if I was trying to tell someone, okay, when I want to come to Fork to have the most success on my first trip, May would be your best chance. Highly suggest hiring one of the very many great guides around Lake Fork for your first day. I would highly suggest that regardless of when you come. And I'm not saying to hire me. I mean, if you want to hire me, I'll be happy to take you out and do everything I can to help you. But there's so many great Lake Fork guides, I would highly suggest getting one of them for your first day here. if you're going to make a trip from way out of town. Are we getting close to tiger truce time? Yeah, we are. Well, I thought tiger truce mainly when the water gets real dirty in the middle of winter, but we are definitely getting close to the crawfish colored lipless crankbait time. You can start throwing the crawfish colors right now. I like crawfish crave, boiled crawfish, all those colors in the quake I like. And of course, tiger truce is a crawl color as well. It just has that really hard bright orange and that hard bright chartreuse with that great contrast that really shines in dirty water. Which do you prefer, Crush 100 or Crush 50? I typically throw the Crush 100 a lot more. Now, this time of year, especially after cold fronts, this Crush 50X is one of my go-to baits. It's a little bitty square bill, or this used to be a big square bill, a normal square bill. Now we've got all these bigger square bills. But this little Crush 50 in the fall, when the bite gets a little tough on the backside of cold fronts, this is one of my go-to baits. I miss Joe Spates. Wish he hadn't closed the store. I miss Joe Spates too, man. Joe is one of my better friends around the lake. I've known him for a long, long time now. In fact, my oldest son Ty, who's 10 and about as tall as his mama almost, that really reminds me of how long I've known Joe, because I was taking Ty in Joe's store when Ty wasn't even 2 years old, and he'd go in there and start naming all the baits on the wall. Like most parents are like proud of their kid when they can do their ABCs or count. Like my kid, before he was 2 years old, could go into a bait store and be like, "That's a rattle trap, and that's a square bill, and that's a trick worm, and that's a Cinco." That was my kid before he was 2. He used to sit in the boat with me at night when I was working on tackle, and he would sit in the floorboat, and he had his own little tackle box that had nothing with hooks on it. I'd take crankbaits and cut the hooks off of them and all that. And he had worms and jigs and all that stuff. And he would sit there and play with me and go, "Dad, what's this? Dad, what's this? Dad," and that's how he learned all those baits when he was little bitty. Should I go with Bill Wilcox or you? You should go with Bill Wilcox. He's a freaking legend, man. If you can get Bill Wilcox to take you out, yeah, I'd go with Bill. Can I go with Bill Wilcox and you? Like, I'll go with y'all. I forgot to fish. Bill came and filmed an episode with me one time, and I absolutely loved it, man. He's a guy that I've watched on TV for a long time with Honey Hole Outdoors, and yeah, I'm a big Bill Wilcox fan. Very, very nice man. How do you think the fishing will be after Bassmasters roll through, have a tournament the weekend after? It won't affect your fishing. The Bassmasters coming through won't affect the fishing at all. None whatsoever. Now, the only way it can have an effect is if they come down here and they whack them, and then the lake gets real crowded that next week. That could affect things. But the Bassmaster tournament itself, it's 80 guys. That's nothing on Lake Fork. That's nothing. That's not even a normal Saturday. They won't actually affect the fishing at all. Now, if they whack them and a bunch of folks flood the lake that next week after all week, then yeah, it could have an effect. What water temp will you stop using the finesse jig? When it gets into the 50s and it gets established in the 50s, right? Like when my high water temp of the day is 58, 57, my morning temps are starting in the mid 50s. So when the water temp gets stabilized and stays in the 50s, that's when I kind of go away from the finesse jig, and I go out a little. The only reason I go away from it is because I back out and go a little bit deeper in creek channel bends, and I throw the flipping jig, the 3/8 half ounce flipping jigs in the deeper creek bends. He said you saw the show with Wilcox. You fished with him on Fairfield. That's awesome. Yeah, he is a great guy and a great fisherman. Do I know if 6 Cents will have a sale on Black Friday? They do every year, so I would imagine yes. Noob question, just got my second spinning reel, and I noticed that every cast of fishing line makes big loops and looks kind of loose in comparison to my other fishing reels. What to do? So a lot of people go to using braided line to a leader on spinning reels. If you throw monofilament or fluorocarbon, especially fluorocarbon, you will get loops and wind knots really bad on spinning gear. most people, just about everybody I know and every pro that I know, they use braid on their spinning rods and then they tie a leader. Usually about a 6-foot leader or so is what they tie. That would be my recommendation. If you use braid, it will eliminate those loops and knots. What's my favorite fluorocarbon line? The one that I use the most is Seaguar Red Label. Now, that's not the best fluorocarbon line, but it is probably arguably the toughest. It has the best knot strength, abrasion resistance, just strong line. I can get away with using that Red Label because, yes, it does have more memory, but when you use your line every day and you stretch it every day, well, that memory doesn't affect it as bad, so I can get away with the Red Label, and it's cheaper. I go through a lot of line being a fishing guide, so I use that. The higher end fluorocarbons, I'll tell you one that I really like, if I was a weekend guy that I would probably stick to, would be the Berkeley 100% fluorocarbon. Berkeley Trilane 100% fluorocarbon is a very, very good fluorocarbon, very low memory, and still very tough. Do I throw a chatterbait in the winter? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, every day. I will have a chatterbait on the deck of my boat every day in the wintertime. Absolutely. Have I used blade baits on fork? I have not used blade baits. That is a bait that can be good. I know it can be good, and it's, you know, the lipless crankbait's just kind of if it ain't broke, don't fix it deal. I get stuck in my ways that way. I'm not always the quickest to pick up on new trends. So yeah, I probably should try blade baits, but I'm not great about picking up new stuff. The lipless crankbait works really well. What made me pick guiding versus strictly fishing tournaments? Well, I never had an idea of trying to qualify through the opens or anything like that because, man, it is just financially. So my deal when I came into this was I had a young family and I couldn't afford to really take chances. I had a mortgage, 2 kids, and a wife, and I had a decent job, a decent paying job, and I couldn't afford to take that gamble. And my job that I was working to make sure I was taking care of my family at the time was a job that wouldn't allow for me to be away and go pre-fish properly for those tournaments and even participate in those tournaments the right way. So it was never a realistic option. Then once I got into guiding, I started guiding part-time. Once I did that and then morphed that into a full-time guide business, I quickly realized that I would have, as far as a businessman, I would have to be an absolute idiot to turn down a guaranteed guide fee every day and go gamble for thousands of dollars. Like, you can't make money on the opens, guys. I mean, you can't, right? Like, you're not going to make a profit fishing the opens. And even the guys that sneak out of the opens and make it to the Bassmaster Elite Series, most of those guys have other jobs. Unless you're one of the top 30 in the world, something like that, man, you've got to supplement your income somehow because the expenses are so high living that tour life that even the guys that are making, I mean, I read a study once when I was actually looking into it. When I first went to full-time guide, and I considered it. I considered starting to fish the open because see other guys do it. And I was like, maybe I'll start fishing the opens and test my wares and see how far I can go. And then I looked into it. And I saw that the cost was like insane. It's like $80,000 a year after your entry fees and your travel costs and everything else. And so you look at how many guys are making $130,000 a year in winnings, and it's like hardly any of them are making that much. Well, that's only making $50,000 a year profit. It just, as a business model, it made so terrible sense, whereas I could go run guide trips every day and know I'm going to make some money. So that was, for me, the reason that I decided to stick with guiding. I don't know, maybe someday. But now I've got these kids that I don't want to leave home, and I got a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I love coaching them in soccer, and I just don't want to get away from the house. So I'm probably stuck for a while. Anyway, that was my reasoning. Hey, man, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. We ran a little bit long tonight. That's okay. I don't mind it. I love you guys. The questions were awesome. There was a ton of you guys that joined us tonight. Thank y'all so very much for joining us. We do these every Thursday night at 8:30. Appreciate it more than I could ever express. Hey, I see more questions coming in, but I got to stop. My phone's about to die. I'm running out of battery. I'm out of time. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next time right here on your Lake Fork Guide. Go Trump! That's right, go Trump!